Hi, I'm Nick Ledbetter. I'm the head football coach at Plainview High School, and you're watching Average Joe Sports Talk. Nick Ledbetter, head coach, Plainview High School.
Coach, been a long time coming to get up here. You know, I've interviewed Coach Scope before here at Plainview. I got out here to interview you guys, and now thanks to time, best time ever after watching you guys play in the spring, the season you guys had last year. We've had actually a lot of fans reach out to us and ask us, so I appreciate you having us up here today.
I'm glad you came out.
Hey, Coach, now you was born and raised here in Rainsville, correct?
Yes, sir.
Talk about the early years here in Rainsville, because this school right here, people around the state knows Rainsville. It is a sports town, and Plainview is king up here. Talk about your days growing up here in Rainsville, Alabama.
Same, growing up, watching the guys play in the early 90s come through, the teams they had, played for state championships in the early 90s. Always wanted to be a part of it, wanted to be a part of the program. It was something that was special growing up. I don't know that I missed a game from kindergarten all the way through. I was at every game. It meant a lot to be able to put the blue jersey on and come to work and practice. And I played through the back end of the 90s, and we had a lot of success during that time as well. I believe from 90 to 2000, we won 104 ball games total in 10 years. And it's a tradition, something I care about. I know a lot of people in town, and so it's just something that's real special to me. And I think the time in my career where I'm at now, a lot of times it's tough to come back at a place where you've grown up and be a coach at. And it was tough here to start with as well. But we keep grinding and working these kids and knowing what we can get the program to. We're taking baby steps each and every year and improving in a lot of areas every year. And it's just, I enjoy being here. If they ever want to get rid of me, then I'll just go out here and start cutting the grass and painting the field for the next guy. So I'm not.
They ain't getting rid of you that easy.
Yeah. I'll be the put me in the booster club then, I guess.
Heck yeah. I'm gonna share a story with you that Coach Rob, Coach Rob from Coach Blood, Mike Robertson, he told us he bragged about Plainview, and I'd asked him who the best coaches he ever played against or teams, and he talked about those Plainview teams in the 90s when he first took over, and he said, come and play Plainview. He said it's the closest thing to perfectly called football that I've coached against. What does it make you feel like a coach like Coach Rob, legendary coach like that, to have words talking about the program that you just mentioned and now you're taking over?
Well, he's been doing it for a long, long time, a lot of years there at Oaks Bluff, and it means a lot coming from someone that's been around this area in northeast Alabama to talk about a program like that, and it also shows that where we need to get to continue the tradition here at.
That's right. Now, something that jumped off to me that I noticed from doing some research on you, that in '99 you was All-State linebacker here in Plainview. Now, when you were growing up, were you not the kid that was wanting to throw the touchdown pass or catch the touchdown pass, or have you always had a defensive mindset about yourself?
I've always been defensive.
There we go.
I've always been defensive, and that's kind of been my mindset. I'm not flashy in any way. I don't dress flashy. I don't look flashy. Did I feel like I could play any position? Absolutely.
There you go.
If you're going to play a game of marbles, you may beat me the first time, but I won't play again. I'm a competitor. I love to compete. But I was a guy that I wanted to be in contact. I played fullback and linebacker, and those were the two places that had the most contact. And, the first game I ever played football, I was playing right guard. I started out as a guard and kind of developed into a skilled player. But I love contact. I love hitting people. I enjoy getting hit. I had a question last year in an interview kind of like this. Somebody asked me, what's the difference between coaching and playing? And I don't get hit nobody. It's illegal for me to do it now. That's really the biggest difference.
There you go. Not unless you rush. I'm just kidding. Rushing my buddy. Take that out. anyways, so in those early years, what are some of the takeaways you got from being on those field on those Friday nights, playing under a great coach like you did, and it's helped you, move forward in your career as a coach?
Well, there's a lot of things now, and one of the phrases I don't like is these days or these kids, because kids, they're not changed. Your expectations of what you want a kid to do, they're going to do if you just poke them the right way. Now, how you poke them may be different. Then watching those guys that have been in the program in the 90s you didn't have to. The tradition was there, and you wanted to be a part of it. It didn't matter what time you came up here. It didn't matter how long practice was. It didn't matter if you were hurt. You wasn't going to say anything. That was, and we want to get back to that type of mentality. But the biggest thing, difference to me from then to now is the fire off the line of scrimmage. If you go flip on a film or go watch Dallas County or the Laverne Plainview State Championship games, the fire off at the line of scrimmage on the snap is unbelievable. There's not a lot like that now. There's a few teams that do, but I don't feel like we're there yet. We're doing it better. But that's something that I remember. And then when you go back and watch some of those old films, it just sticks out of how fast things happen after the snap. That contact is just like two rifles going off right at each other.
Flat back and low.
Yes, low. This high, this high off the ground. It's a big old guy staying that high. You can do it. It can be done.
It was violent.
Yes.
You guys are bringing that back. I like it. Was there a point in your career whether that you were thinking, hey, I think I can do that. I think I can coach this game, or I would like to coach this game or teach this game one day?
I wanted to go into civil engineering. That's what I wanted to do. Had an opportunity to play football in college and baseball in college, but I really wanted to go into civil engineering. Went to college and I started into that field. Started working at a steel fabrication shop as an estimator, and come back here and started volunteering here in 2000, about 2002, and that's when it clicked with me that the reason I went to civil engineering is so I could be indoors and outdoors on job sites. So I transferred all my stuff, went to Alabama, and started helping Coach Franchione in that program there in 2002 or 3.
He was the GA there, right?
I wasn't at that time. I was a shooting assistant. I went to the football office and talked to the secretary and asked to see, I think it was Coach Ross was there at the time. I asked to see Coach Ross. He couldn't see me. I went the next day. Couldn't see me. I went the next day. He finally met with me and told me to come back. So I come back the next day. I just kept coming back. He said, here's your list of all the high school coaches in the state. I need updated names, updated emails, and updated phone numbers. So I started picking up the phone and calling coaches. And eventually went through Coach Franchione, Coach Price, Coach Shula. I got a GA position.
Now let me ask you a question. What did you learn during those times, seeing it from the next level?
Humbleness. We got it.
There we go.
I watched some teams come to Tuscaloosa during that time and throw it to us. Northern Illinois came down.
I remember that game.
Some of them, we struggled. We were under sanctions. We wasn't allowed to have 85 scholarship players. We had a lot of walk-ons that was played and starting in skill positions and up front in offensive line positions. And you got a piece of humble pie real quick.
Hey, it happens on all levels. That's a true statement. Now, let's fast forward to your career when you started coaching at the high school level, and what led you to that?
I had a friend of mine that was a GA, and he went to all the NCAA football conferences trying to get on as a position coach. And for months and months, he had 0 bites. And he finally left and went to Walker High School. He was a coach at Walker teaching history, and left Walker and took a job at Idaho State, I believe. Was there 1 year. They let the staff go. Then he ended up at UAB as a GA again, and then went to a position coach in a small school in Louisiana, and in Arkansas. He's a defensive coordinator for Southern Arkansas right now, I believe. But to see the move, the change,
it's all over the country, man.
And I want to retire one day. Yeah. Here he is. He's went years and years and years and had went everywhere. He still hadn't started anything or making any real money. And a school not far from here, DAR, was going to start their first football program. And I didn't want to go through the things he was going through, trying to find a job at that level and getting cut everywhere you go. I wanted to be more stable. I wanted to spend time with my family. I wanted to have a wife and have kids. And if you're at that level, that's the other thing I learned. I mean, you have a wife and kids, but you don't have a wife and kids. You don't have time. One of my job roles for a couple of years when I was at Bama was on Thursday nights. I would go to Ramajamas and pick up all the food for all the coaches' families and wives so they could have dinner together one night during the week. Every Thursday night they would have dinner together. And that was one time they really got to see each other. And that wasn't for me. So I ended up at DAR for my first high school job, the first year they had football. And Coach Pruitt came back here in 2006 and called me and asked me to come run the defense for him. And stayed here, I guess, for about 10 years. Coached football and baseball. And then had a really good baseball program at the time. And Coach Brooks, who just won the state championship softball this weekend, for the first girls state championship here.
Congratulations.
He was the baseball coach, and he had turned the Scottsboro job down. And they asked him who we needed to hire. I took that job, and I just missed football. And ended back in Sylvania with a friend of mine working in Sylvania, and this job came open. They would come back home.
The Sylvania teams, I noticed in the article I read about you, really improved on defense as well. You had some really good defenses there.
Yeah,
You had like 5 shutouts in the span of a year or 2 years there. Only gave up like 87 points for some 1 year. What have you picked up on as far as the difference from being a head coach to a coordinator?
All that stuff you have to deal with. It's a lot more fun coaching football when you're an assistant coach or a coordinator because you have your skill or your players or your position that's your main focus. Head coach, phone calls with parents, phone calls with players, having to go to so-and-so's house at 11:30 at night, making sure we have everything we need for the trips, making sure that everything's lined up and all the logistics is taken care of, eligibility, all that paperwork. Of course, we have a lot of people that help us here with that. Being able to, from washing the clothes to making sure we have enough knee pads, belts, helmets, equipment, shoulder pads, pants, practice cloths, girdles, practice jerseys, getting everything washed and clean. Spend a lot of time. My wife, she thought I spent too much time with football when I was a coordinator, and then I got to start getting some head jobs, and I think she finally just realized that I'm going to be gone during the season. She's single, but it's still not the same as it is at the college level. That's 11 months out of the year. Typically, they have the month of May off in college to spend time with their family. That's really it.
That's about it. Is there a point, you mentioned your family there, is there a point where you can take the coach's hat off and relax? Like, say on your way home from a practice or whatever it may be, game, that you take the coach's hat off and become dad or husband. You got to decompress yourself. How does that look?
It took me about 3 or 4 years after we got married. We've been married going on 15 years now, close to 15 years. She'd probably kill me if she knew I didn't know. It took, after being married about 4 years, to not take it home. When I walk out the door and I lock it,
shut it off.
I'm done. If I start watching football, and all the kids and everybody's in bed and it's quiet, I may start turning some game film on, but for the most part, I try to do everything on my here. Saturdays we give everybody off. And now I'll be taking the defensive coordinator role again this year. It's the first time I've been the defensive coordinator and the head coach since I've been here. So I'll be taking that role on this year, which I'm excited about, looking forward to, but at the same time, it's just even more time when I'll be up here.
Yeah.
I've already warned my wife.
You're going to have to break down the film and everything now. You already warned her?
Yeah.
I bet she was like, hey, how much further can this guy go with? Now, I know you said you don't, you turn on film maybe possibly if everybody's asleep and relaxed, but after a loss or something like that, are you one of those guys that just kind of
I'm ready to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the hardest ones.
That's the ones that get to you.
When I get up the next morning, that's the good thing about Saturdays during the season is my kids playing Big League ball, and I'm able to
get some sort of football film.
So be a parent, just watch.
Yeah.
Watch the kids play, and that takes the mind off a lot of it. But I can't wait for the kids to get back up here after loss so we can get back to fixing, the problems that we had.
Does your kids' coaches come to you and say, "Hey, coach, what do you think we need to do here?" Do they?
That's yeah.
Okay. I wondered if you got that, son, because I know a lot of coaches I talked to said.
We try to use the same terminology on a lot of stuff all the way
There you
up. Now,
That's good.
as far as exactly what formation play you run, you skin a cat 1,000 ways. Whatever you get your kids to do best. But as far as our rule of thumb terminology on our fronts, both sides of the ball, we're going to make sure those stay the same all the way.
That's good. That's how you build a program, foundation up. Kids, no doubt about that. That's good. That way it'll be second nature by the time they get to you.
And our junior high this year, those kids, the 6th grade going into 7th grade, have kind of been in our terminology for the last 2 years. So we have 7th graders or 6th graders during our spring practice this time that's asking questions, really, really good questions that for the last 2 or 3 years we might not have had a senior ask. So I'm excited for that group. Those groups that's been in the Pee Wee program that have already learned a lot of our terminology. They're already ahead of the game.
That means they're engaged and they're paying attention. That's awesome. Let me ask you this. You just mentioned something that I kind of like to touch on right here. It seems like the game changes. We're talking like philosophy-wise. But what I like what you've done from watching from the outside, not being in the huddle or nothing, but you've kind of turned back old school. Was it hard to get the kids to buy in once you come up with the idea to run what you run now?
Well, it's something that as a staff we wanted to run and wanted to do. Timing and personnel caused us some issues early in the first year and a half, really. But the work ethic in the weight room, my offensive line coach Clements, is also our strength and conditioning coordinator. We went and listened to several strength and conditioning coaches. One of them in particular, Georgia Tech, and he had a rule of thumb: 24 months. 24 months with your kids in the weight room, you can get them to do whatever program you want them to do, but it takes at least 24 months. And we went to that clinic and came back, and we were sitting at about month 12 when we went to it, and I would say month 18 is when everything in this room we're sitting in right now changed. The kids finally started seeing the benefits of the work we do here, and we would come in and scream and yell. A kid would miss a rep or didn't do enough sit-ups. We'd punish everybody. And kids thought we hated them. They didn't like us being on them all the time, having our thumb on them, because we just had to watch them like a cat. And then when they messed up, when they didn't get paralleled up in the squat, we were screaming at them. And now we can come in the weight room, and this place don't have hardly a place to fit another body in it, and they're just waiting on us. And all we do is say go one time. We're just watching.
Coaching themselves.
We would look for guys messing up. We don't have many to do it anymore.
They probably like a herd mentality now. They probably pick out people who don't want to.
It's pretty neat in the off season. You come in here, they'll get like these metal walls over that doorway, and as we're changing, they're talking before we come out here to work. They're here just banging and being loud and screaming, just waiting for us to come and say go.
Turn them loose.
Yeah, that's been a big change. That happened about month 18. So that's where the change really started for us.
Was there a point, like a hurdle, that you were like halfway at that point before you started seeing those changes? You was like, man, yeah, I don't know if this is going to.
I was wondering if we were ever going to get there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We won 3 games year one, had a lot of injuries. We started, when I got here, we had 65 players. And by the second week of the season, we had about 30.
Man.
So we had, within the first 20 minutes of day one, we had about 8 wanting to quit. We just stayed at it, stayed with them. Lost a lot of kids, had a lot of injuries. But it makes you wonder. That was a long season, but we won 3 games, made the playoffs, and lost 4 of the games by just a few points, or had to leave the fourth quarter and lost. We had the opportunity to win 7. Then we had a lot of kids. One of the kids we did have, a lot of them graduated. And, the next year, we had a good group of seniors who started working hard and started leading us. Again, we won 3 games, but it was a lot easier to deal with because the work ethic was getting better. And they kind of set a foundation. And then the juniors through that season, as soon as the season ended, they took over this weight room. It was either doing it that way or just out the door.
And now, Coach, just stop me if I'm incorrect here. that's the group that you told me about in Jacksonville that was running extra sprints and stuff. Could you share with everybody that maybe didn't see that interview about what you shared with me in Jacksonville?
When we come back in the summer, we got our kids June 1st. They were hungry because we hadn't seen them. They've been a couple months since March since they shut school down. And that senior group was already hungry before that started looking forward to spring practice. Very exciting group, a group that had been playing since we got here. They had a lot of power. And we started working. I told coaches we're going to run 10 110s, we're going to go 50 squats first day. We have them. And they absolutely obliterated it. I thought we'd have some kids struggling because it's been so long. But they did a good job doing stuff on their own during that time too. And we had to split them up in groups, so because of COVID, we couldn't have so many in here because of square footage. And we had to keep them split out here. So we had 3 group rotations. We'd have a group on the practice field doing offensive or defensive skills. We'd have a group on the game field doing sprints. We'd have a group in here that we just rotate for 2 hours. We just rotate 2.5 hours. We just rotate them up as they finished. And let's say this group out here ran 9 full gashers. The second group would go out there, they ran 12 full gashers. The next group would come out here and they'd run 14 full gashers.
Not asked to, they just
Not
did.
asked to, yeah. Their quota for that day was 9, but each group would do more and more. So collectively as a team, man, they might be 3 or 4 that first day that went out there and would run more. The next day they may be 10. And then before too long, we had the whole team after practice, summer training was over. The whole team was out there running more and more and more. And it carried on through July. We'll run 60s, which we don't run 60s very often. If we've had a wrong hard week, or our bodies, I feel like our bodies are sore, we'll kind of jump into a 60 mode, run 60s. I don't have anyone that was close to 30. We won't run 12. And seniors, the rest of the kids, we'll run some more, coach. This one's for this game. This one's for this game. These two's for this game. Coach, it's overtime in Tuscaloosa. We're still, we just ran. It was something awesome to witness and be a part of. One of those few times I remember telling those freshmen and the young kids we had that day to remember, you need to remember this day and how you just led the day. Because I tell the kids all the time, good teams, coach led, great teams player led.
That's right.
Those guys we were led by those seniors for sure.
I know you put them in the state. I mean, all across the state, you guys were people in the state, people talking about you in newspapers and on social media and stuff. You guys had a really great season. Last year, I mean, it seemed like you kind of turned the corner offensively. Defense started clicking. I mean, you guys were a really good football team last year. How are you going to kind of take that and grow from that? I know you just talked about the freshmen and the people looking at how they got led by those guys, but I'm sure you've had conversations and here in the weight room and then over there on the field to where, that's not normal. I'm around kids every day, and what you told me was kind of stood out to me because I haven't heard that of any of the team, that's doing that much stuff on their own. I mean, there's a lot of guys do stuff on their own, but not, like that.
Well, biggest thing this team, we've addressed the biggest difference between this team and last year's team, other than just the physical side. Last year's team was probably a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. This team's going to be a little bit longer and leaner, a little bit faster than last year. But that whole group, the love they had for each other, that's really the key part they had. That group loved each other. They were going to fight for each other. They were going to die for each other. They were going to do everything they could for each other. And that's one thing that this group we have right now. They're close, and they got a lot of good leaders and some good seniors coming that's leading them as well, and trying to do the same as that last group did. But that glue that they had is not where it needs to be yet. I hope we can get there, especially when we get into the summer in a couple of weeks and start grinding out. And will they fight for each other the way that group fought for each other?
That's good stuff. It's like a pack mentality. I know you talked about earlier, you don't like to hear the phrase "these kids." What I'd like to ask you is, I mean, like you said, kids are going to do what kids are allowed to do. Coaching nowadays is a little bit different because of the way it's coached, the game was coached. And I know you grew up in a very good environment, very tough coach football team. How did you relate your teachings back then to how kids are nowadays? Like, how do you bring that in? Because it is a different brand of football now, like we already talked about.
It's what you do, the standards, expectations that you have with the kids every day, the expectations we have here, the expectations we have on the practice field. When it's time for a water break, are they walking to get water? Or are they jogging over to get the water, take the break, so they can actually have a break and jogging back on to get ready. So and so didn't catch the ball, and he go over there by himself. And he get push-ups for not catching the ball. It's small things like that we have to make sure we as coaches keep our thumb on and make sure we're doing all the small things right, so that the practice or the weight room doesn't go into a lull or start slacking off. And that's on us as coaches. But from the aspect, I feel like we're as close now to the way mentality was in the 90s. We're not far from it. We're close. We're really close to that same type of mentality with our guys. And I'm really, that's one thing I'm probably most proud of is that we show up to work. Our guys, they may dread it, they may hate it, but they at least fake it like they're ready. And we appreciate that as coaches. And it's our job to make sure they stay kind of up tempo, bounce around. And if they don't, they know there's consequences. You know, they're going to run. We're all going to run. If I screw up in something I do, they screw up. If one of them jumps off sides, it hurts the whole team. You know, you screw up, I screw up, they screw up, we screw up, and we're going to. One person screws up, we're going to handle it all together.
Somebody blows a coverage and they score, and the whole team gets scored. So we're going to love together. Yeah. I interviewed Bucky McMillan one time, and he said something that really stuck out to me, and I was going to ask you about that. He talked about parents, you know, and how important it is for parents to get bought into what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Bucky said 90% of careers are ruined at a dinner table. He said because parents judge 100% of their aspect on what goes on between those white lines, but what goes on between those white lines is less than 1% of the program. Do you feel the same way about that?
I would agree 100%. You're going to have as much success as parents want you to have success. Whether you're talented, you're not as talented, whether you're blue collar, white collar, gray collar, whatever you are, whatever your parents allow, however much success they allow you to have by their involvement, by what they say to their kids, you can practice for 4 hours out here from the time they come in to work out the condition, and then take your water breaks, your special teams, and actually be from the time the bell rings to go home for 3.5, 4 hours that you're here. And on a 20-minute ride home, everything you just did for that kid for 4 hours just went out the window if a parent had a bad attitude about something they didn't like that they seen on the field that lasted 8 seconds.
That's true. Makes
So
a lot of sense.
Yeah, parent involvement and parents' aspect of their mentality and how they feel the coaches' workroom, what they're doing offensively, defensively. Yeah, that's at this age level, high school, it's everything.
It's different. Now, Plainview's known, DeKalb County football in general, man. What's that been like for you to go to school here, make All-State, play on successful teams, come back to the county, even with Sylvania and all that, just to be from this area and be, known for such good football?
Pride, and you want to throw class in there too. We want to be high effort in everything we do and have class while we're doing it. We always sometimes fail at that, and I'll do myself. But it's something to be proud of, and to be in a community where people care about the kids. That's one thing we're blessed. We have a really, really good community here in Rainsboro. If there's something I need or a kid needs, there's 20 or 30 people I can just text or make a phone call. They wouldn't ask a question. Hey, I need some groceries. I need some bread. I need some peanut butter and jelly for my kids. I need so and so. He needs some help. And we're blessed to have a lot of people in here that will help. It's really good that they won't ask who, what, when, or for anything. They all pick up and pitch in. That's probably one of the biggest blessings of being in this community and growing up in this community and being back here now is knowing that whether you have a 3-win season or a 10-win season, rush for putting 9 points on average on the board or 40 points average on the board, people care about the kids. And that's the good and the bad.
Yeah.
When you're not doing good, you're also it's going to be they care, so you're going to be taking off shots too. But if things are good, and every school, every place I've ever worked has the goods and the bads, and they're all different. But one of the good things about being here is a lot of people here. And that's also when things are going bad. That's one of the bad things too. A lot of people here.
That's it. That was actually my next question. Was we live in what you call a microwave society. They want it. Most people want it here. They want it now. They want it just like that. Things don't work like that. talked about earlier, the 24-month rule and the workout plan. But it's kind of a double-edged sword because you want to be at a place where they kind of demand that and expect that, rather than a place they're like, it was one and nine at school.
Right.
But just know your personality. I mean, do you think that's actually probably a good thing that they
challenge? We all want to be challenged, especially. Right. And I don't. People may get upset with me saying this, but as a man, you want to be challenged.
I agree.
You want to have something in front of you that's an obstacle.
That's right.
So the more pressure you have on you, for me, I feel like I do better when I have a lot of pressure on me. And I'd rather be in that situation as I had being the only one who cares, and nobody else cares either. So
that's right.
That's kind of a lonely place.
No doubt. I've been on a team like that too back in school, so I know what you're talking about. Coach, before I shut it down, I always like to ask coaches this. I like to close with this because I think it's really important. When these guys graduate, like that senior class you had last year, and they part ways with you, what do you hope they take away from your coaching and teaching?
What I hope is that they'll be a good husband and good father. But before they get into the husband-father role, I hope that when somebody has their application in front of them and somebody else's application in front of them, and it has on there that they were, they played on their first few jobs, first applications, they went to school at Plainview High School, and they played for 4 years here in this program, that employer is going to say, I know you're going to show up to work every day. I know you're going to be here, and I know I can trust you. I'm hiring you.
There you go.
That's probably one of the things that I want the most is that when our kids get compared to whoever else it is, all the people that make those decisions to see that they come to a program that they're going to have work ethic, they're going to show up to work every day. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it 4 years, and you can trust them. That's what I hope.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that answer right there. It means a lot. It makes a lot of sense too. Coach, it's been an honor sitting in with you guys. And, this won't be the last time we come out here. I'm definitely going to come out here and probably do some preseason stuff with you and over into the season as well, and definitely get some one-on-ones with some of your guys too.
I certainly appreciate you coming, and we enjoyed having you. Come back anytime.
Thank you, Coach.